Driving on the left or right is not just a matter of preference or convenience. It has a long and fascinating history that goes back to ancient times when people travelled on horseback or in carts and chariots. And as it turns out, there are some surprising reasons why some places choose one side over the other. Let's start with the left side, which is used by about 35% of the world's countries today. Most of these countries are former British colonies, such as Australia, India and South Africa. But why did the British drive on the left side in the first place? Well, it all comes down to swords and scabbards. You see, most people are right-handed, which means they would carry their sword on their left side so they could draw them quickly with their right hand. This also meant that when they encountered another traveller on the road, they would want to keep their right hand closer to them in case they needed to defend themselves or attack, so they would naturally pass on the left side of the road, leaving their sword hand free. This custom became law in Britain in 1773 and 1835 when Parliament passed acts that regulated traffic on bridges and roads. These acts stated that all carriages and wagons should keep to the left side of the road to avoid collisions and confusion. And since Britain was a powerful empire that colonised many parts of the world, it spread its driving style to its territories and dominions. But what about the right side, which is used by about 65% of the world's countries today? Well, this also has a lot to do with weapons and wagons, but this time it's not swords and scabbards but whips and wheels. You see, in late 1700s and early 1800s, France and the United States began using large wagons pulled by several pairs of horses to transport goods and people. These wagons had no driver's seat. Instead, the driver sat on the left rear horse, so he could use his right hand to whip the horses and control them. This also meant that he wanted to pass oncoming traffic on the left side, so he could see how close he was to their wheels and avoid hitting them. So he would drive on the right side of the road. This practice was also influenced by car maker Henry Ford, who mass-produced his Model T with a left-positioned steering wheel in 1908. This made it easier for drivers to get in and out of their cars from the curb side and also gave them a better view of oncoming traffic, so driving on the right became more popular and convenient. This practice was also adopted by many countries that wanted to rebel against or distance themselves from British rule or influence. For example, France switched to driving on the right in 1794 after the French Revolution. Napoleon then imposed this rule on his conquered territories in Europe, and Canada changed to driving on the right in the 1920s to facilitate trade and travel with its neighbour, the United States. Some countries even switched sides in more recent times. For example, Sweden changed from driving on the left to driving on the right. In 1967, it involved changing thousands of signs, signals, bus stops and intersections overnight. The switch was surprisingly smooth and successful.